Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pilot Mindset. On today's video, we're looking over custom parts and mobile suit setups within Gundam Battle Operation 2. To be perfectly clear, there will be what might be considered perfect or optimum setups with the various mobile suits that you may encounter and possess. However, it's only one of many factors that can contribute to your success on the field. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Custom parts within Gundam Battle Operation 2 are divided into several categories: attack, defense, movement, auxiliary, and special. However, the parts that require the least introduction are the enhanced programs for both range and melee power. Both sets of parts start their stat boost at 2 and end at the maximum of 13. However, the higher in tier you go, the more slots it takes up, limiting what other parts you can fit into your respective mobile suit. A regular DBL is a part that enhances status duration effects by 10%. Suits like the Goof and similar suits that possess a heat rod like mechanic will benefit from this. Overtuning melee is a new part that came with the Zaku 4 IP banner, which gives an increase to melee damage by 3% and adds an additional 3% per unit level. The bonus for this part caps at 12%, benefiting mobile suits that are available above their native cost range. Shifting to the defensive side of the spectrum, we have armor boosts that increase the resistance to a particular type of attack. Anti-armor parts coming in the form of ballistic, beam, and melee parts. All three of these respective parts have 5 tiers that help mitigate a mobile suit's incoming damage, at the expense of custom slot space. Now, resistance in question for a mobile suit is in a satisfactory state, but it's still a bit squishy. We have 2 different parts that bolster a suit's HP pool. Both new model frame and strengthened frame parts perform the same role. However, both parts sometimes have better success over the other depending on how much space is left over on the suit. One thing to note is that strengthened frame parts have a wider increment of HP given per part, which can be considered an easy way to round out a setup, all the while filling up the last bit of space on a suit. Last but not least in this category, we have shield reinforcement parts. While these might not be on the highest of priority on a build, shield reinforcement parts are also an easy way to help round out a setup if you find that you have some free space. While the movement category has the least amount of parts compared to the rest, these by no means are any less important. Thruster control systems affect the cap range on how long a suit can engage its high-speed movement. Having the part in a loadout allows for someone to respond to the ever-changing battlefield just a bit quicker, and or gives additional overhead for someone learning how to manage the boost without overheating. High-spec boost control is a part that increases the mobile suit's speed by 5. While such a part might be good for slower support-type mobile suits, the space it utilizes would be more than likely be used for something more directly beneficial, such as thruster control or melee defense as an example. Last but not least in this category, the first Overtune part that we got back in March of this year is the Overtune mobility part. Very much like its melee counterpart, the mobile version gives an increased bonus towards a mobile suit's high speed movement based on a unit's level. The part maxes out at a bonus of 10 regardless of level. In the auxiliary category, there's quite a lot of parts that I use plenty of in my early days with DBO2. Kicking off with the AD ASL part, they increase the area lock-on of a weapon with the ASL property, allowing for a kind of auto-aim behavior at distance. While they might be useful for starting off, I can't recommend them in loadouts as it somewhat interferes with manually aiming on specific areas of a mobile suit. AD DCS is an auxiliary part that reduces the recovery time for some status effects by 20%. An example of that might be radar jamming from an Isaac or even heat rods. While this isn't exactly a must-have part in your build, it's one of the few perfect parts that only takes up a single mid-range custom slot, just like a shield enhancement part. Auxiliary generated parts assist with beam weapons that have a heat rating to recover quicker. Having a tiered system like its ballistic counterpart, auxiliary generators are very useful for mobile suits that have a leaning towards heat-based beam weapons and can get the most usage out of those parts. Cooling parts are one of the many parts that have a 2-part enhancement to their properties, and that may differ from when the PC version comes out. The main purpose of this part is to give a reduction to the recovery time when a mobile suit boosts, while the secondary effect increases the mobile suit's thruster cap. Depending on your play experience, it wouldn't hurt to try working those into a build while learning a new mobile suit, until you feel comfortable without it. Force cooling system parts affect the recovery time from thruster overheat. While it may be decent for starting out, considering you may not possess many custom parts, some of these might be more useful on higher cost suits. Precision focus spring parts are a nice part to have if a mobile suit has a very long focus time for its beam weapons. Granted, their use may be beneficial to mitigate charging time for some main weapons, however the percentage that is shaved off, upwards to 10%, not including stacking similar parts, may not be worth the 1 or 2 seconds shaved off on a mega beam cannon. The last part in this category is quick loader parts. Tiered in a similar way to its auxiliary generators, these parts help speed things up with reloading ballistic weaponry. As with their counterparts, they can be really useful at higher costs, especially if you stack multiple parts of the same type. Our last category for custom parts is special, with no pun intended. Leading off is the database link parts. With only 2 tiers, these increase damage done to legs, head, and back slots by 3 to 6% respectively. While it could be argued about the priority of having these parts in your kit, since it focuses on certain hitboxes of a mobile suit, I would highly suggest adding these towards the end after everything else feels satisfactory in terms of damage output, boost, etc. Introduced during the 3rd anniversary celebration of GBO2, the Psycho Frame, synonymous with Char's counterattack, made an appearance as a step-up banner custom part. This unique custom part brings a reduction in Psychomu weapon lock-on time by 25%, a reduction of damage on a unit HP by 3%, and an increased mobile suit turning capability by 3. It's implied that this part is made for kits like the new Gundam and Sazabi due to the Psychomu weaponry and high cost range. Experimenting on non-Psychomu and lower cost mobile suits might have some benefits with its utilization, but it may not be worth the room that it takes up. Space frames are also a newer addition and only come in 2 tiers. Topping off with a very modest amount of HP between 2 to 400 and an increase to your thruster cap of upwards of 3 to 5, they could be pretty useful to round out a desire to both have a HP gain for your mobile suit and some overhead for your boosting. Special back armor parts function like their leg parts for ground combat, increasing the back HP base from 30% on up. Also, like their leg counterparts, back armor now reduces HP loss for the back damage based on the tier that is equipped. Special head armor also functions in the same way as the back and leg armors, giving a mobile suit a larger HP pool for their respective hitboxes while reducing incoming damage in the specific hitbox. These two also follow the tiered system, and while it may be helpful, as losing your head slot puts a debuff on your outgoing damage, I find that you're already dead by the time that this is happening, or close to happening. Special leg armor parts are utilized quite a lot out of the 3 special armor types, as much of the player base seems to have their souls weighed down by gravity. It was a joke and a reference for those that are new to the Gundam franchise. It's fine. Anyways, as I was saying, special leg armors are fairly must-have parts for mobile suits that tend to have fragile legs and can extend the amount of time to dish out extra damage if you're completely taken out to respawn. While it isn't likely that anyone normally uses the highest tier leg armor part, most of the lower tiered parts are enough to keep most suits afloat to accomplish the mission. One final late addition that has come during the Kshatriya banner is the Overtuning range part, complementing its melee counterpart that was mentioned earlier. Designed for mobile suits that have a range firepower leaning and are at least level 3 or higher, the Overtuning range part brings a lot of damage potential to the table. giving a 1% increase in range damage output initially. The part stacks upwards of 3% per each level of the suit, capping at 10%. Having tested this on a bishop myself, it's certainly worth it, assuming you have the space and range power to spare. Now that we've gotten the lengthy introduction to parts out of the way, it's on to setting up your mobile suit. For this, we have 3 cost ranges that we'll be sampling for this exercise: 250, 500, and 700 cost, each representing different points in GBO2's power scale. Please note that you don't have to follow the exact examples, especially if you don't have all the parts available yet, but rather use this as a guideline to help better understand your mobile suit. For the 250 cost range, we have the Zaku Marine type, a range-based Zeon aquatic mobile suit that boasts a lot of firepower and some limited melee capability. Our build here goes with a level 4 enhanced firing program, a level 1 new model frame, an enhanced melee program level 1, a thruster control system level 1, anti-ballistic armor level 1, and topped off with a ACP DCS part. Mainly because of the limited space that comes with a lower cost mobile suit, our setup does what it can with its main focus on damage output, all the while boosting up other avenues such as high speed movement and addressing that it will more than likely be fighting other suits that are similar to what it does and in that same cost range. For the 500 cost range, we have the Hazel Custom, a simplistic Titan's mobile suit that utilizes a GM12 chassis with a Gundam head for psychological effectiveness against Zeon remnants. Our example build here utilizes a enhanced melee program level 1, 3, and 4, an enhanced range program level 2 and 4, an anti-beam armor level 3, and a thruster control system level 2 and 3. Since the Hazel Custom only comes with a thruster gauge of 55 stock, increasing it as high as it's shown gives it a lot more movability around a map, but sacrifices a bit of the melee potential it has. Throwing on some beam protection and keeping range strength at a decent level gives our build for the Hazel Custom some bite as a frontline unit and able to quickly respond to changes on the battlefield. For the 700 cost range, we have the new Gundam, Amuro Ray's final Gundam, and one of the most advanced mobile suits of its time. Due to the types of mobile suits that we have in this range, a significant amount of beam defense is required, as we've done here with the anti-beam armor level 5. And since it's a suit that will also be getting into the thick of things, anti-melee armor level 4 helps with incoming melee damage, as well as having the Psycho Frame part included. On the offensive side of things, New has a leaning towards range combat, therefore we've added an enhanced firing program level 2 and level 4 to help compensate for the beam resistances found on other mobile suits. Topping it off, we also added a strengthening frame level 4, a database level 1, and an AD DCS part squared away. With the parts in place, this particular build doesn't quite fill all the space that it has. However, it does feel like a good starting place to help adjust which parts need to stay and which parts need to be omitted in favor of others. With us going over the parts and a few mobile suit options found in Gundam Battle Operation 2, I'm hopeful that you picked up on some information through our lengthy explanation of things and learned quite a bit in your own understanding of the game since watching them. Information is key with any game, and being good at it comes with time. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to like it, share it, and subscribe. It certainly helps me and helps with the whole creative process and the channel. If there are more specific questions or topics you'd like to see, leave them in the comments below. You never know, they might just make it into the next one.